Heyo, Stoic here. Hey, welcome to the Bedrock Guide. Today we're going to be doing a drowned farm review, and I've looked at several different farms that are out there, and there's a lot of consistency, a lot of inconsistency. We're going to take a look at them all, but I scoured YouTube, and there's some old ones that are still good. There's some new ones that aren't very good at all, and we're going to see what we can do. A lot of comments came in about not looking at all the YouTubers that are out there. Unfortunately, I can't speak different languages, so it's really tough to see everyone that's out there, but I'm doing my best and learning from some of the best about where to find new information. So I'm grateful to all the new friends that I'm making. So if you don't see the one that you like, or your favorite one's not on here and you want to know how it compares, I can always check things out later. So just leave me a comment and I'll take a look at that. If you haven't subscribed yet, consider subscribing. It helps me out. Leave some comments. Let's drum it up. Hit that like button as well. And this really helps me keep moving on the channel. This is turning out to be a fun journey. But yeah, let's go ahead and find which farm works best. All right, yeah, let's take a look at these snapshots first, and we can see that we're going to be looking at 6 different kinds of farms from 6 different content creators, and I'm really grateful for all of those content creators, but we're going to be rating only 5 of them, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. And some of the things we're going to be looking at is how much loot you get from each of these farms in 1 hour, how many blocks you need to get that loot, so we'll talk about a little ratio there, and then how simple was it to make this, and they're honestly all pretty simple. So without further ado, let's get into this. All right, let's swing into this first one, but first, hey, you can tell that I'm using a texture pack here. This is by JayCubTruth. He's using some borders on some concrete, and this is just to help visualize how many blocks we've got here, because concrete likes to run together. But now this first one is by Pyreesin, and he's got 2 farms. He's got 2, and the other one's right over here. Unfortunately, well, he's getting a lot of views, but unfortunately these farms don't work. The drowns just are not attracted to the eggs like they're supposed to, and so they just don't go into the trap. And when you do get them into the trap, I had to break it earlier, but there's a minecart in here, and they sit in the minecart, and this is supposed to be a trapdoor trident, but the trapdoor trident fails. So if you can find a way to get this trapdoor trident to work, you might be able to make this farm work. But I'm not even going to give these 2 a rating. Just want to let you know that this one will not be functioning. These 2 won't be functioning by Pyreesin. And yeah, but you can still check them out. Great content creators. So thank you, Pyreesin, kind of setting the stage. Some of these are about a year old, so updates happen and we don't get to use these farms. So yeah, let's take a look at the next one. All right, here is our next one. This one is by ModStop, and I like this guy. Great content creator, some great videos, lots of energy, and he's got some cool stuff. This one is his drowned farm, and it honestly did not do very good at all. It is a manual farm, and you're kind of relying on drowns to come up to some eggs that are stationed right down here, and they filter their way up into kind of a kill chamber, manual one. So you just you wait for them to come up, and you kill them. And this one, unfortunately, that was the very first trident that I got. Good. Well, it works. It works. So let's talk some of the stats on this one. So I only tested this one for an hour because it was manual, and I wasn't going to see a whole lot of drowns, unfortunately. So I only got 78 flesh and then 0 tridents. Well, I finally got 1, and then so I only got like 87 things total from this farm. So it's just not a whole lot. I mean, it's simple. It's easy. I think if you were to put this thing in the middle of the ocean on a kind of a flat area, kind of like what Pyreesin did over here, that way you could have drowns coming in from multiple spots. And if you change your AFK position so that it was just getting these drowns spawning where they're going to aggro in at the eggs, that could really make this farm really simple at that point. And yeah, you just camp out and collect your goodies. So, but unfortunately, I had to give this one a 0 on loot. you're just not bringing it in. I think you're better off swimming around trying to find the drowns that you want and then killing them in order to get the loot that you want. And then but there's no ratio anymore, block to loot ratio. I mean, it's very small. I mean, you're not, I didn't really even calculate it, honestly. The simplicity though is very simple. I mean, you still will get some drowns up here and you're safe and you're just hanging out. You'll eventually get some stuff. So, overall, I would give this thing a 3 out of 10. So I'm not too thrilled about it. But thank you, ModStuff, for coming up with some new stuff, and it looks original to me. And I think there's some comments from some of his community that could help make this farm better. So I'm liking it. So let's move on to the next one. All right, next on our list is JC Plays. Yep, his big one is on here, and it's been around for a long time. And quite frankly, a lot of people make the same farm, and that's what their videos are. They might make a couple changes, but the idea is still the same. There's an extended platform here, so there is a lot of distance for these drowns to travel, and they just make their way into a kill chamber. So everything has to travel really long distance to get to where they're going. Now, this is the largest farm, and it will have over 4,000 blocks that you need, and a lot of it is because of the large platform, and then you have to have a big canopy above it to make sure you've got darkness on the water streams up here so that all of your monsters can make their way in. In fact, I've never really seen any of these monsters really pay attention to this egg that's up here. Maybe they'll move a little quicker if you got rid of that, or maybe it was a little bit lower so that they could see it a little bit better and aggro towards it. So there could be some updates on here that could easily be changed, and maybe it's a little more efficient. But yeah, this one works fine. Yeah, you're getting 1,200 rotten flesh on average here, and about 23 trident killers, or not trident killer, tridents, 23 tridents per hour, and for a total of 1,360 some items per hour. So you are getting some nautilus shells as well as copper for this farm. So looking at the ratings, yep, we're getting a little bit better rates than the Silent Whisper farm. And we had, I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 for that one. We've got our block to loot ratio because it's a lot more loot with a lot more blocks. I was able to give this one a 7 out of 10. And then from a simplicity standpoint, again, giant platform, giant canopy, and a kill chamber. It's pretty simple. So 8 out of 10. A lot of these are really simple to make. So overall, 7 out of 10 for JC Plays. So thank you, JC Plays, for making this one. A lot of people admire this kind of farm, and yeah, it gets replicated a lot. So thank you, JC Plays. Okay, here's the next one. This one's by Silent Whisperer, and this is actually a very similar variant of the Golden Helmet farm. It's just a little bit different, and it's a lot more blocks and a little less efficient, but we'll get to that in a little bit. But you can see same idea from JC Plays. Instead of a long platform, we got a stair here, and all these drowns are slowly making their way down, and then they'll eventually get into a tunnel. And it takes about a little bit of time to get down here, but then we got our typical trident killer down here where you can start collecting all the XP and all the goodies. So yeah, this one's pretty straightforward, but it is a lot of blocks. And you can see they're using ice in this design. All right, so let's talk rates about this one. So I was able to pull in just over 900 rotten flesh per hour with this farm, and I was close to 40 tridents per hour. I got 38. And then overall, it was just over 1,100 items of loot. So that includes some fishing poles and copper and nautilus shells, as well as the rotten flesh and tridents. So yeah, this one works well, and we're going to need about 3,600 blocks though, based off of the description that was on there on the YouTube station. And this big canopy does it, and there's quite a few extra layers here compared to one of the original farms that are out there. So if we're going to get into some numbers, let's see, loot wise, it's a 6 out of 10 compared to some of the other farms that are out there. And then from a block to loot ratio, so the number of blocks you need to get the goodies. We're looking at a 7 out of 10 because you're just not pulling in as much loot as you are placing blocks. So you got to build a lot to get a lot. And then simplicity, it is still pretty simple. You got a funnel, you got a canopy, and you got a trident killer. So 8 out of 10 there. So overall, 7 out of 10 for Silent Whisper. So thank you, Silent, for making this variant of a Golden Helmet farm. And yeah, let's keep moving on to the next one. All right, let's take a look at the Ice Palace by Rufus Atticus. Yes, Rufus made the list on this one because it is just a cool farm and it's unique, and some of the same ideas and mechanics still apply, but this is kind of a compact ice design, and I like it. It's really cool. It's in an ice biome, which isn't needed anymore because 1.17 drowns now spawn just as often in ice biomes as they do in regular oceans. So yeah, doesn't need to be in the ice biome, but you're pretty close to get all this ice that you need. So in this one, it is dark enough inside there because we got enough layers of ice here to block all of the light. And so drowns will spawn inside, and it's got a short pathway. They can see the eggs that are sitting in the middle, and they will run down and jump into this small little chute, which has a trident killer right here. So we got a little refresher here. Every time the Cephos clock changes, it gives us enough time for loot just to drop down into our collection system right here. So let's talk rates on this one. So I was able to pull in only about 700 rotten flesh per hour for this farm, but this farm is a lot older, so rates are a little bit different from what's advertised on there. So it's about a year old and about 24 tridents, so still pretty good. And then from a total, we're just under 1,000 items. So that's all the copper, nautilus shells, tridents, and rotten flesh, and some fishing prods as well. You can see some of them dropping in right now. But we're looking at only 2,700 blocks to build this farm. It looks like we got some squids in there as well, which is pretty cool. Pulling in a little bit of ink every now and then. Loot-wise, it does pretty good. So we're a 7 out of 10 there. And then the block to loot ratio, we're an 8 out of 10 because we're using less blocks to get a decent amount of loot. And from a simplicity standpoint, it's an 8 out of 10. There's a lot of good technical information in his video, and the mechanics portion of it are great as well. I just really enjoy Rufus Atticus and a lot of his farms. So yeah, check him out. Thank you, Rufus. And yeah, we're looking at an overall score here of 7.6. So yeah, we're ramping it up. So let's move on to our next one. All right, flying in on our last one, Golden Helmet 403. And we've seen him in some other reviews as well, but this thing just crushes it. It is great. It's the original funnel design, and he's got a more recent video that shows some additional mechanics and some additional things to make this farm more efficient. And this thing was just really easy to build. In fact, in his video, in his thumbnail, you'll see that all the ice is TNT instead of ice, and you'll have to watch this video to see the mechanics of it. I think it's fantastic. I opted to show everyone that you can use ice and then surround it to get all of your light levels low. This avoids a big canopy, kind of like some of our other ones that are out there. But yeah, if you've got the extra blocks, you could use regular blocks too to block some light, but tinted glass works just fine as well. As you can see, we've got our trident killer up here taking care of business, so there's almost no funnel at all, and they just drop into a collection system. So instead of moving the bad guys, we're just going to move the XP and the loot here. Loot-wise, let's talk about it. I pulled in almost 2,000 rotten flesh in 1 hour. I pulled in just under, 42 tridents per hour for this farm. And I didn't put in, I think he calls it the Nautilus Flux, where you actually, I think you can capture a Nautilus shell, and then every now and then it'll dispense it out, and your drowned will give you back a trident for the Nautilus shell. So you're doing a little trading on the side, which is really cool in my opinion. So you're guaranteeing yourself a trident instead of relying on your looting 3 sword to get that. So I believe you can jump that up to 60 tridents per hour when that happens, and it's just a little bit more redstone underneath here to make that thing work. But for simplicity, I didn't put it in today just to see what we can do, but there are ways to make this thing better, and I think it's fantastic that he did it. And also you can make this thing better. There's modules, so you can make this a little bit smaller and then have 2 modules, and then you can have 4 modules as well. There's just so much flexibility with this. So overall, I pulled in 2,260 items, so 2,260 items from this farm. So loot-wise, we're crushing everyone on this build, and we have a 12 out of 10 for loot. We're just getting so much loot from this farm. And then also the build ratio, we barely have any blocks here. It's just under 1,500 blocks from what you see. And then if you add a little bit more, the ratio is not really going to change. So 10 out of 10 for the blocks to loot ratio. And overall simplicity, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It's very similar to a lot of the other farms. I think it's one of the original ones that have, I think it is the original one that has the funnel, and that works just fine. There are some additional turtle eggs in here to help aggro things into the middle, and I think that's what really speeds up your rates to get a lot more drowns in this farm. So overall, 10 out of 10. Golden Helmet did it again. He's got us one of the best drown farms out there right now. I think this, if I were going to build it, this is what I would build, and I would plan it so that I could get multiple modules in there to really up the amount of goodies that you can get. So yeah, very cool. Thank you, Golden Helmet 403, for making this farm. All right, thanks for joining me on the Bedrock Guide. I really appreciate you joining me on this review. I hope to have more coming out. If there are any kind of farms you want me to take a look at here in the future, let me know, and I'll start looking at them as well. And let me know if I missed a drowned farm that just is better than the ones that I've listed, and hopefully we can get that shared so the community can really have a strong world that they can play in. So again, consider subscribing, hit that like button, and thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.